So, about a year ago, we flooded this forest, and the results were immediately mind-blowing. We recreated this super rare temporary ecosystem that supported all kinds of different species that have been struggling quite a bit because of the dam. But the ultimate goal is for this to happen at least a few months every year for many years to come. And that is the true test that is going to determine the success of our project here. It's not just a one-year thing, which is of course why this spring and this summer we've been tracking all of the flooding really closely. And it's been a hell of a ride. From the first water moving into the wetlands to our biggest and fullest flood yet, it's been absolutely insane. So strap in and get ready for a proper wetland experience. This story begins in the first weeks of spring, just as everything is starting to turn green. And not much was new in our wetland, except for a few willows that Bros planted there during the winter. And they have painted them white because they're less palatable to deer that way, and really increases their chances of survival. And the reasoning for planting all of these different willows here is because they essentially can't disperse too well without the flooding. The flooding helps open the ground and then allows the willow to settle in new areas. So we have to sort of help them out a little bit and help them spread to this area next to our channel. We also checked out the dry channels to see how things look like right before the flood. In a more natural setting, there would probably be a bit more water here already, but given that these floods are simulated, everything has to wait for the humanly scheduled date to arrive. And the frogs clearly didn't get the message.
So we have these clutches, maybe 15, 16 here, of Rana dalmatina, the agile frog. So you can see that the frogs basically found this little patch of water and all of them laid their eggs here because, as you can see, there is not much water around here.
We tried to rescue the clutches that were getting dry, and while this scene looks quite desperate, we felt it was worth the quick effort, because we knew that upstream, things were about to kick off. So after the simulated flood began, we followed the water and got started unclogging a series of channels and water passages, so that the flood can flow into the channel that we built.
So we are trying to get as much water as is possible and as fast as possible.
Nothing about this is natural, but neither is the dam, and this is the only lifeline that this ecosystem has. Also, I have to note that this work should have been done by the water management company, but instead it mostly falls to Jakob Sigmund from Bros, or Siggy, as we like to call him. He is the water magician that makes all of this function by keeping a close eye on things. And after we unleashed the water, things really got going. So this here is what I came here to find today. The tip of the water which is flowing down the channel. And it's just such an exciting moment. I'd never witnessed it before. And it actually moves so fast. We're having to move back a few paces every time we tried to stop and film it for a little while. And it's just such an incredible experience to see the water moving into the landscape. It is amazing to see our channel in action, bringing life to this place, and as I show you the whole flood now, I just want to remind you that the only reason we could create all of this, and also our other rewilding projects, is because of our Mossy Earth members. People like you, watching this video, that decide to contribute a small bit each month to make these projects happen. And I can't stress this enough, we're not funded by some investors, we're not funded by a huge company, we are funded by you. And we have a ton of amazing, super impactful projects coming up, ranging from coral reefs to rainforests, oysters, cliff ecosystems, termites in the desert. I mean, you name it. We've been really broadening the scope of our work. So if you'd like to help us out and you'd like to make an impact, then please consider heading over to mossy.earth. Link is in a pinned comments, link is in the description. And to see how it all works, you can also check out our channel trailer here on YouTube. Now, let's dive into this wetland.
So I'm back a week after our last visit with Eduard, and you can see that our channel has filled up with water. So let's check out the forest. The water is actually flowing in this direction and flooding another forest in the background. So it's a bit tricky to walk. So the flood is going to continue for another week, but you can see that our forest is already completely flooded.
And further down at our second willow forest, things were looking really good as well.
Look at this. This is the second forest. It's beautiful. A lot of birds chirping.
Seeing Adriana enjoy this experience so much felt a bit off, until I realized what was missing. So at this stage, the mosquitoes are pretty harmless, making it perhaps the easiest time to visit these ecosystems. But I couldn't spend all spring camped out in Slovakia. So to help Adriana film this, I asked for the help of two fellow YouTubers. Dima, a badass volunteer activist, and Patrick, a very skilled wildlife photographer. I've created a community post on YouTube about each one, so be sure to check them out and subscribe to them, because they make super cool videos. Now, the mosquito larvae are actually a good starting point for our story here, because they are food for other insects, for the fish, and also the tadpoles once they grow some legs. But this is early days in the flood, and the fish have not yet arrived in significant numbers, and the amphibians are yet to hatch. Here you can see the spiral egg clutches, characteristics of toads. So probably common European toad or European green toad.
So this is quite a typical sight that during floods the snails, as the water rises up, they come up and wait on the trees. And yeah, we have some old pictures from the 50s where you have, you know, a trunk just covered with snails.
Snails were in fact everywhere. Some species actually enjoy the water, but others do their best to try to escape it by climbing on rocks and trees, dangling precariously from plants, and even, it seems, floating around in their own little boat. There were plenty of birds in the nearby channels and riverbanks, such as egrets, cormorants, herons, and swans. In our wetland area, we saw woodpeckers and various tiny birds, such as this chaffinch, and this acrobatic little bird, which we think is either a marsh or a willow tit. We also caught glimpses of a buzzard flying around and sitting on tall trees, and our camera trap caught it checking out our flooded forest, along with a few other species, such as these mallards taking a bath, and whatever this might be. We think it's a nutria, or a Myocastor coipus, but I'm curious to hear what you think it is, so let us know in the comments below. The only other mammal we saw was the ever-present roe deer, and by setting up microphones for a few hours, Patrick was able to record. And please prepare your ears. Yeah, that is really how they sound like. They have this really weird bark. And in addition to that, Patrick also captured the early spring atmosphere, wild boar, owls, and woodpeckers. And in terms of amphibians, the only ones we spotted during these days were the European tree frogs, which sat neatly on the reed.
So this is the last day of the flood. From tomorrow the volumes will start dropping. So this is the maximum water level that we'll see in our forest this spring.
Jakob even got out his fancy kit and went about gathering data to improve flooding models, because measuring the flood peak is super useful for planning. And Lukas decided to maximize the flooding area.
Lukas decided to try and dig a small channel and see if the water can flood that area behind him, where you can see the reed. So we'll see. The TMR map showed that the elevation is lower there, so maybe just digging a few meters will bring some water in that area as well.
But all of their work was in fact completely wasted, because the water was not going anywhere. It simply kept on rising and rising, until in May, it looked like this.
I'm covered in mosquitoes. It's the end of May, and I came back to Istrago, our wetland area, to show you that we have some new wetlands here. it's been raining quite heavily for the past 2 weeks, and what's happened is that basically our channels filled up again and started to spill out and flood this surrounding meadows, which is really great. It's not so pleasant to be here at the moment because it's full of mosquitoes. It's a big mosquito party here, but it's great for the wildlife.
This place has been mostly dry since the dam was built in the 90s, but in old photos we can see that researchers used to go here by boat back in the day. So this can tell us a bit about what this area used to look like.
This is the most amount of water that this wetland has seen in a long time, so we are really glad and we're celebrating today, us and the mosquitoes. So we're entering the small forest from a different side because we couldn't access it through the channel because the water level is just way too high. And yeah, we're not tall enough and our waders are not tall enough.
Here you can see the pole where we left our camera trap in the early spring flood. And look at it now. I'm really glad we didn't leave it there. And the extra water is really impressive.
So that's our channel right there, and you can see how it's spilling out nicely and filling up that reed area.
That is where Lukáš was digging the channel, and ultimately the water simply went over it all and flooded a lot more than just the reed bed. I love this shot of Siggy, who's put in some sweaty hours to make all of this work, and it's nice to see him enjoying these incredible results. Now, this looks lovely, but for you to get an idea of the mosquitoes, Adriana did this.
Oh, look at this. Oh my god.
Now, that's some dedication to getting the shot, but as she mentioned, they're not just a pest around these parts, they are food. And by this point, the tadpoles were out in full force. Look at this explosion of life. It is really impressive. And of course, the tadpoles can also be a snack for others, as Lukáš captured in this pretty cool shot. Then Adriana found the first young European fire-bellied toads of the season. They're called bombina bombina, and they're an endangered animal that this wetland protects, and the one that makes this wonderful symphony. And after Siggy analyzed the data of this mega flood, this is the picture that came up. Compare this with the model he made last year, and you can see that the flooding potential has really been maximized, which is really good news. Now, for this season, we expected to have 2 floods, because the water management company also planned a summer flood for July. But this flood was different. Normally, the discharge is set at 90 cubic meters for a few weeks, with some of the barriers in the area closed. But this time, it was set to 120 cubic meters, with the barriers open, but only for 3 days. This helped remove the silt and the mud from the channels, so that the fish have fine gravels to lay their eggs in, and this is really great. However, when they closed the barrier, they lowered the discharge to the normal level of 30 cubic meters. This means that there was some flooding in the bigger channels, but our smaller channel only had low water. However, I still wanted to give you a sneak peek of how these forests look underwater. So I went to another forest that is linked to the same channel and that got a bit more water this time. And this is what I have to show you. I captured a few fish on camera, but generally they preferred to go into the clouds of dust that I kicked up with my feet, which made them super hard to film. Then in the wider channels, it was a bit easier because I could actually dive in properly, and I had this curious fish come quite close. And finally, they even reached the low water in our channel, where there were also a few water snails enjoying it while it lasted.
Well, so despite the rain, the summer flood hasn't been nowhere nearly as impressive as the spring one. And of course, that is to be expected. It was absolutely mind-blowing. But it actually gives us a pretty neat opportunity to go check out the forest just after the water receded and see how all the different plants are doing and what kinds of species we can find.
In the forests, the ground cover was either a thick mat of bramble and nettles or an open patch. This was to be expected, and the mosaic of opportunities will be useful for different species. And I managed to film what I believe to be young agile frogs, as well as a few grass snakes. I'm not 100% sure what is wrong with this one. It might have eaten the wrong thing or spent too much time in the sun. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments below.
So, checking in here on the battle of the plants. The invasives are still around, but they're doing worse. I've noticed them less and less compared to the native wetland species that we would like to see here.
Only proper analysis with a drone will tell us what the progress really is. But that is a topic for a future video, because this was definitely not drone flying weather.
So, I don't know how well you can see or hear that, but it's absolutely hammering down with rain right now, and I can hear thunder in the distance as well. It's one of those classic summer storms that just has so much energy. And yeah, I think it's time for me to pack up. This was the video for this year. I hope you enjoyed seeing this wetland come alive. There were many people involved in this video. It was a ton of work, but it was also a ton of fun. And also I really look forward to showing it to you again next year. So final reminder, if you like the work that we do, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so at mossy.earth, link in the description, link in a pinned comment down below. And if that's a really big step for you right now to spend some money on rewilding projects, then please consider subscribing to the channel, turning the bell on, and watching a ton of our videos. That really helps out too, and it costs you nothing. So yeah, I'm gonna walk back in this lovely storm and really enjoy this atmosphere, and I hope to see you in future videos. Until next time, cheers!